Rollback netcode, crossplay, frame data, big roster, good graphics, single player content. These are more than just buzzwords. These are features that gamers have requested time and time again. Some of them are optional quality of life things that make us happy when they exist. Others have become requirements for new fighting games. Without them, these games are dead on arrival, and Street Fighter 6 is doing everything right. Up until now, the game was playable at a couple of events, and other than that, all we could do was just look at it, look at each announcement and go, oh wow, they're doing that thing. In a way, a lot of the announcements sounded too good to be true, but now Street Fighter 6 is in closed beta, so we can finally check it out for ourselves. And I still can't believe this game is real. Now, I know I'm an anime games channel, and to call Street Fighter anime might be a stretch, but whenever there's a new anime fighter and I'm doing a review and saying it's missing some things, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. And in general, anime games do follow fighting games. They just take a while to catch up. So whether or not you're a fan of fighting games, know this: Street Fighter 6 is the game pushing the genre to the next level. And it's not the first one, obviously. I think we've had a few genre-defining fighting games in the last couple of years. The success of Dragon Ball FighterZ was impossible to ignore, and I think the biggest influence it had on the genre was just how easy the game was to pick up and play, largely because of auto combos and the super dash button. Later, Arc System Works pushed the genre forward again by implementing the best rollback netcode the world has ever seen, and promising crossplay after release. Now, Guilty Gear Strive at this point doesn't have crossplay yet, but there's a crossplay beta coming out soon, so eventually it will have it. And without a competitor doing things better, who knows if Capcom would step up their game so much with Street Fighter 6. But the truth is, this game is gonna rock. It's not just doing everything fighting game fans want, it's doing things that we didn't even know we wanted. Did you know that during a ranked match or casual, you can hold the start button to vote for a no contest? And if both players do it, the game ends without any penalty, without any winner or loser. That makes so much sense. And yet, I never saw anyone asking for a feature like this. Sometimes you're expecting a good connection and you get lag, no idea why. Maybe it's on you, maybe it's on your opponent. But instead of getting mad because now you have to play under these conditions, just hold the button. We'll find someone else. Everything that I saw advertised on Twitter is just real, and I was experiencing it for the first time ever. For instance, fighting games come out, and sometimes players like to know their frame data. There's a big debate on whether it should be available in-game or not, but look, if there's gonna be frame data on Dustloop anyway, why not have it in-game? Street Fighter didn't just do frame data, it didn't just give you the numbers, it gave you a whole ass visualizer. So even if you don't understand frame data, it's now so much simpler to wrap your head around it. On top of it, it gave us a bar on top of the character's head, so you know when you can press the next button in a combo for a tight link. Again, not only giving us what we want, but going above and beyond. That said, it doesn't matter how much of these cool things the game is doing if it fails on the big things. The big things being a good roster, good gameplay mechanics, and I'm gonna say it, netcode. Now, I'm a beginner when it comes to Street Fighter, so I'm not gonna go in depth about mechanics and roster. I've just been playing Ryu, to be honest, because before I discover characters, I need to discover Street Fighter itself. As a relatively newcomer to this specific fighting game, I'll say that this game has been a blast to learn, so I'm happy with the mechanics. Netcode, though, I've experienced a lot of it. The good, the bad, and the goddamn awful. Having rollback doesn't automatically mean the netcode is good, so here's how my experience went. First, I played a bunch of games in Europe, didn't have a single bad experience. Most games were actually played at 0 frames of delay and 0 rollback frames. How? I have no clue. With enough experience, maybe I'd be able to tell this apart from offline, but right now, I can't tell the difference. This is perfect. But then, I wanted to start stress testing this netcode, so I joined some other servers, and the furthest distance I can do is from Europe to Asia, preferably Japan or Australia. My first game in Asia was against someone from Singapore. We played on a stable 2-frame delay and 3 frames of rollback. And this was the first time that I could even tell that the game was online. The delay robbed me of this combo, for instance, and the startup for some of Ken's moves were shorter, so the rollback was definitely noticeable. But honestly, this is not as bad as I was expecting for such a big distance. I then found someone in Australia. The difference was pretty small. It was a little worse with 4 frames of rollback this time. That meant I didn't see Kimberly's light punches until they were connecting. Found another Kimberly in Japan, and it was pretty much the same. This is very playable, by the way. It's not ideal. I certainly wouldn't want to play in a tournament tournament like this, but it's incredible that you can have this quality of online netcode over such a long distance, which made me curious about the connection from Europe to North America. Now, America is big, and usually playing against someone on the East Coast is fine, but West Coast is a problem. And I have no way of knowing where these players are. That said, in general, the game gave me 1 frame of delay with 3 frames of rollback. Against this first opponent, it was fluctuating quite a bit, so I'm gonna guess that was Wi-Fi. This Chun-Li must have been on the East Coast because this connection was awesome, sometimes going as low as 1 rollback frame. But it wasn't until I played this Jamie that I was really impressed. Most of the match was at 1 frame delay, 3 rollback frames until we reached this moment. We get a small lag spike, and then look how big this lag spike is. Now, this is where most games would desync or just say connection lost, but not Street Fighter 6. Not only did it sustain the connection, look at how well it recovered. That ping came down so quickly. You can see the numbers coming down, but to me, it felt like it was instantly back down to what it was during most of the match. And that's when I knew this isn't just good rollback netcode. This is the best rollback I've ever played. That's saying something. On top of that, I was really impressed by this game's performance on PC. I usually play fighting games at 1080p resolution just because I don't want any stutters mid-match. I don't want to negatively impact my opponent's experience. Even if my computer can run the game just fine, sometimes there are performance peaks and they can happen at crucial moments. Street Fighter 6 is running at 4K resolution on borderless window mode, and it's running perfectly. And that's really impressive considering how good this game looks. Now, in this beta, we didn't have access to all the game modes, obviously, but there will be a single player mode that seems pretty fleshed out from what we saw in the trailers. And that's a good thing. Not everyone is into fighting games already. If you want to draw new players, good single player modes are a must-have. That's how I got started in fighting games too, but the beta did let us make our own character. And this is one of the wildest character creators I have ever seen. Not just in fighting games, in video games in general. You can make some really cursed characters, and that means you can also make some really good looking characters too, and customize them so much if you've got the patience. Did Street Fighter really need this in their fighting game? No, but they did it, and that's crazy. Now, I do have some feedback to give from the beta. Again, as a beginner Street Fighter player, I'm not gonna talk roster or mechanics, just some things I noticed that maybe could be a little bit better. Some are pretty small, like sometimes there's a pause at the end of an online match. That's a bit awkward. I don't know what's happening. I'd rather if it was gone, but hey, I can live with it. I love how fast rematching an opponent is anyway, so that doesn't really bother me too much. It's just polish. What I don't like though is when I'm waiting in practice for a match and the game just takes away my buttons. If an opponent joins you, you can still move around in practice, but all your attack buttons are gone. And it usually takes me a second to realize that. My brain immediately thinks that the game is broken now, and it takes a bit of time for the match to begin, so you're just sitting in training mode with no buttons, and there's pretty much no warning. It's very odd. I also think that this is probably not gonna change, but I'll say it anyway. Counter and punish counter are dumb names that just complicate things, because these are words that fighting games have been using for a long time. But in this game, they mean the exact opposite that they're supposed to. A counter is just a normal fighting game punish, and a punish counter is just a normal fighting game counter. They didn't need to reinvent the wheel here, they didn't improve anything by doing this, and it's just confusing if you're coming from somewhere else. Finally, and this is a big one, online lobbies have to be optional. I think they said they would be, but just to make sure, I want to make it very clear, we want the option to play casuals or ranked matches without having to go to this lobby. Since this is a beta, it had some issues at the start, which is okay, it's what it's for. It took me almost 5 hours before I could actually join a lobby and play. During that time, there was a workaround when the lobbies were broken, because you could just watch any replay and queue for a match from there. For about 5 hours, the entire beta was broken simply because of the lobbies, so I hope they are optional in the final game. Overall though, I am in love with Street Fighter 6 in a way that I haven't been in love with a fighting game in a very long time. When I finally entered the lobby and the Damascus sniped me after I only had 10 minutes of practice and then proceeded to beat me up in what ended up being a 23 win streak, I had the time of my life. By the way, this is the gameplay on my side, but if you look at his stream, this is the same match, but the stage is different. Another great detail, you can just play wherever you want, regardless of your opponent's selection. Might not sound like much, but if you played Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know how much of a bummer it is when your opponent has picked to destroy Namek. Oh, and extreme mode is fun as hell. I thought it'd just be a dumb game mode, but you could actually get good at this. It's not as party game as it looks like. I totally believe there will be side tournaments for extreme mode. It's hella fun. But I gotta stop talking about this game, otherwise I will run out of time to play it, and the beta is only up for so long, so I bid you farewell. Street Fighter 6 is leading the charge on the next generation of fighting games. That's the message. I hope anime games will catch up faster this time, because my god, they've been lagging behind for so long. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye!